We're going to fix this leaking oil cooler today on this Duramax the fastest, most efficient way possible. Let's get started by lifting this thing up. Driver's side tire is gonna come off. Before we get started on this job, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to have a list of all the different parts and supplies and tools you're going to need to perform this job in my video description. And it's going to have links to where you can purchase these things. And if you want to pay me back for helping you perform this job, you can use those links to purchase some of these items. Doesn't cost you any more, but I do get a tiny little commission, which helps me run this channel. But I know a whole lot of y'all aren't going to go to that video description. Now, if you're like most people, you're going to run out and you're going to buy an oil cooler gasket kit to perform this job, and you're going to expect that it's going to include everything you need. Well, it does not. So let me make this extremely clear. You're going to need not only the gasket kit for the oil cooler, but you're also going to need to buy this O-ring separately. Now that O-ring there actually goes inside the oil cooler. The oil cooler has two different O-rings inside of it. And for some reason, only one O-ring is included in these kits, whether you buy the Velcro, the AC Delco, or the ball. They all only include one, and you're going to need this one separately. The part number for this is 943-99279, and that's a GM Genuine part. Not only are you going to need that, but when you take out that oil cooler, you're going to most likely remove the coolant tube that goes to the water pump. Now there's a O-ring on one side and there is a gasket on the other. I recommend replacing both when you do this job. The way I do it, I tend not to actually take apart this part with the O-ring, but it's like 2 seconds extra to do it, so replace it while you're in there. The part numbers for these are 126-35594 and 940-11702. And like I said, that's all going to be in my video description, and I hope to have links there to where you can buy all these as well. And you know, it would be a huge favor to me if you use those links when you purchase these, because I do earn a very, very, very tiny commission if it's from Amazon. But if these items aren't located on Amazon, I'll also include links elsewhere as well. Next thing you need to do is go ahead and drain your oil and perform what will eventually be an oil change. Now, in my case, I'm not going to drain the oil pan, because I happened to discover that my oil cooler was leaking while in the middle of an oil change. So I got brand new oil and a brand new filter on here. So what I'm actually going to do is only pull the oil filter out and only drain that section and leave the rest of it in there. But if you haven't just done an oil change, go ahead and drain that oil. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you to go ahead and drain your radiator right about now, and that way you can drain your cooling system. I do not recommend that. What'll happen is, if you'll spend all that time draining the radiator, and you're still going to have a ton of antifreeze that's going to come out when you remove the oil cooler. So it ends up being just a huge waste of your time, and you also waste a lot more antifreeze. Instead, what I recommend is just putting an actual, bucket under here, right underneath that oil cooler, and as we pull those bolts off, it's going to drain into that bucket, maybe a little slower, but it really doesn't make too big of a mess. It doesn't spread out too bad, and it just will save you a ton of time on this job. Let's go ahead and remove this inner fender liner now. If you're not familiar with how to do these, there's just a bunch of clips. I have a special tool that I recommend that pulls them right out very easily, but you can get by with a screwdriver if you have to. This is going to be a little hard to see, so I'm coming in through the fender here, and right up on top of that oil filter housing is an electrical connection, and it just pulls back and off. You can see it at all. just like that. So I just pull the top of this and the whole thing will pull off the top. We need to remove this intercooler tube right here so that we'll eventually have access to the coolant pipe that goes to the water pump. Now, it doesn't really matter which end of these clamps you remove to get this thing out, but I'm going to remove this one right there, and then back up on the top of the engine, I'm going to remove this one right here, get those clamps loose, and then I'll pull that out. These use an 11mm socket. It can be a little hard to route out. It's sort of like a bring it out and twist motion. Back under the truck looking at the intercooler now, and so you're going to see just an absolute mess of bolts and nuts and things, and you know, it can be hard to decide. You think, which ones do I remove? Well, I'm going to make it easy. We're going to remove all of them. You see, we're going to take this out in 2 halves, so it makes it, when you take it out as one unit, it's just something you're gonna have to fight, and you have to split this thing in half anyway. So don't worry about which ones go all the way through the unit and which ones only hold the oil filter onto the housing. Just remove them all. So I am coming to you from the future right now. I thought the easiest way to show you what to remove and how to remove it is to do it while this thing's out of the truck and you can see everything. So as far as what how I'm going to tackle this, I'm going to start by removing this nut and this nut. Those both sit on the studs right there. You may want to remove this bottom stud. It'll help you get this one out. If you don't remove that stud, it's okay. What you can do is just remove this part of the way, and then once everything's loose, you'll be able to get enough room to get this out without removing the stud. That's up to you. But anyway, after these are removed, my next two are going to be this one and this one. Now what that's going to do is allow you to start draining some fluids and things like that. From there, working on the main body here, you want to remove everything. The only things you don't want to remove, or you don't have to remove, are the 4 nuts that are on this. There's one right here, 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 and here. Those actually hold like the tubing that the oil goes through in the coolant. I can't think of what it's called, but that actually holds an internal part on, and you won't need to take those off until later. But if you do take them off now, it's okay. To get this first half off, you're looking at removing this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and that one. And that, then you have these 3 go all the way through to the body. That will allow you to separate this. And the only 2 you will have left are these 2 up here after that. There will be, on the end of this tube, you're going to have 2 nuts to get off of studs to get that out. Probably the only other thing you need to know is if you go and you just start removing everything, like I said, and then this thing isn't falling loose at all, there's a good chance that you either forgot this one right up in there, or that you forgot this one up there. Those can kind of hide on you, and hope that helps. Let me give you a final count. So what you should have total here is there's 3 different size bolts. Long ones, looks like total is 5. Medium size, which go over here, is 2. And then these small ones, you're gonna have 7 of them. And then of course 2 more nuts for here and 2 more nuts over there. This here is the rig I used to get most of those oil cooler nuts and bolts out. And so it's just a long extension. I went ahead and reduced it just so I'd have a little bit more space up there. Then I've got a swivel and then a short socket, and that'll get you most of them. I've taken out about half of the bolts so far, mostly the back ones, and you can see now that we are draining the coolant. I'm gonna stop there and just let it drain for a while. And you know, it'll take just a little bit of time, but it'll be okay. A lot easier than draining the radiator. While that's draining, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this bracket, this one right there that I'm pointing. This is underneath the coolant tube that goes to the water pump. Removing that bracket isn't very difficult, and it's gonna make your life a lot easier getting that bottom nut off that stud. So I went ahead and removed the other bolts, and now I am able to split the oil cooler in half. Now we need to remove these 2 nuts off of the coolant pipe that's headed into the water pump. There's just one here kind of in the front, and there's another one up under there that's a little more hidden. I use long extensions with the swivel on the end to get the top one, and I'll use the same on the bottom one by reaching up from underneath the truck. With that out, now we can remove the 4 nuts. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Almost forgot to film it. And that reveals the last 2 gaskets we'll have to replace. Now you just want to clean up all the mating surfaces for the gaskets. You might want to get out like a Brillo pad, use a little brake cleaner. Just get it all cleaned up nice. Let's get rebuilding this thing. So this is the gasket that's actually included in the kits for these. And so we can just replace this little O-ring real nice and easy right here. And then the other one that you had to buy separately, it goes right down in there. I am curious. I have only done this on the earlier Duramaxes, and so I'm wondering if they eliminated this in later ones, and that's why the kits don't include it. But you'll know when you get in there what was existing. I actually already stuck my new gasket in here, but as you can see, it just kind of lays in there real loosey-goosey. A lot of people will take RTV and use that to hold this gasket in place as you're attaching it to the truck, since we are going to do this as 2 halves. I don't recommend doing that. In fact, the actual technical specs, they say that do not use RTV here, because what it can do is it can create where this doesn't seal all the way in one spot or the other and actually create leaks. Instead, the trick, because you don't want this thing moving around too much, is to actually put a little bit of grease in and around this. So I'm just going to pick a few spots, stick some grease in there, and then we'll lay the gasket down in the grease, and that grease will hold it in place while we're installing this in the truck. And if you've got any grease inside, just get that out of there. but this will hold it in place so much better. I'll kind of wipe this excess, put it down with it just to kind of hold it where it's supposed to be, and that'll hold, as you can see. Over here on the 90, our new gasket's gonna go up in there, and then we need to replace this one. And that'll crush down as you tighten it. So that'll, yeah, don't forget to clean things. I'm gonna clean that off. I'll sit there, that's the way it goes. And this one will go right there. And don't forget to replace the gaskets on that water pump tube before you fish that thing up in there. Now that we're beginning reassembly, just know that all these nuts and bolts get reassembled to 18 foot-pounds. So we're gonna go ahead and slide that on, and you're gonna bring all of these finger tight, and then from there you're gonna torque them in a star or cross pattern. So like here, then here, something like that. The same is going to be true as we install the entire unit up in the truck. Everything's going to be kind of like crisscross star, 18 foot-pounds. It's going to be hard for you to see this as I do it up under the truck, so instead I'm just going to talk you through reassembly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this thing up kind of back in there, and I'm going to get that to line up on the stud. What that's going to do is there's still a little bit of play here, and with that, once it's lined up in the studs, then I hope to push this thing back. That'll push the seal in where it needs to go, and I'll get these first 2 bolts on it. Once that is all mounted back up and in place, it's at that point that I can fish this up in there and install the rest of it. But one thing I want to make sure to do before I put this on is just make certain that this gasket is still exactly where it's supposed to be in the groove. So I got that first half up here and in place. So what I did was I fed this tube up first, got it on the kind of right where the bolts are, and then from there it's a tight fit, but you can wiggle and wiggle and wiggle until this will slide up between the engine mount and the headers. And so as you can kind of see here, it's sticking out. I don't have that 90 on yet, and I'll be able to slide the 90 on from this spot and then push it up into place. You can see now I was able to mount that elbow, and then from there just push that thing up against the block and get it all mounted up to 18 foot-pounds. Next thing I'll do, I've got the gasket on where it's supposed to be, and I will install the other half of the cooler assembly. And I know that people kind of prefer shorter videos, so at this point I think that's pretty self-explanatory how to put this back together. It's basically just taking everything else you have on the ground and putting it together. Just make sure that when you mount the other half of that oil cooler that you use a crisscross pattern. That way you don't sink one side down too tight and then the other, because that can cause leaks. So as long as you crisscross that and then put everything else back together, you should be in good shape. I really hope that you found this video very helpful. I went through and watched some of the other ones out there on this topic, and I was appalled. So I hope that this method that I use is simpler than everybody else's, and that I covered everything you needed. And if I did, please help me by clicking that subscribe button. I appreciate you.